and I turned 18 on the day my family proved I was never really part of it. I was standing in the back of the little coffee shop where I work, hanging the last string of fairy lights from my birthday party, when my phone lit up with a group text. "Sorry, everyone. Party is canceled. Family emergency." Sent from my mom's number. I hadn't even cut the cake yet. I heard the door slam in the front, and the familiar sound of my mom's heels, followed by the sharp, broken rhythm of my sister's sobbing. I stepped out from behind the counter just in time to hear my sister's voice crack through the room like glass. "If I can't enjoy my weekend in LA, then she doesn't get a party either." My mom didn't argue. She didn't even hesitate. In front of the shop owner, my co-workers, and the two friends who'd come early to help, she just nodded and said, "I'm sorry, honey. We can't do this tonight. Your sister is falling apart. We need to be sensitive." Sensitive. That's what she called it when my life got pushed off the table so my sister could stretch out. I looked at the stack of printed invitations I'd kept as a souvenir in a little metal mixing bowl on the counter. I struck a match from the emergency candle box, watched the flame catch the corner of the top card, and let the whole pile burn until the edges curled inward and turned black. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody asked if I was okay. My sister was still crying about her canceled trip. My mom hovered over her like the rest of us were background noise. So I did the only thing I had left control over. I went home, grabbed my backpack, stuffed in some clothes, my tip jar cash, and the small audio recorder I use for my voice notes. I walked past my mom in the kitchen without saying a word. I think she assumed I was sulking in my room. I walked straight out the front door, down the driveway, and toward the bus stop that would take me to my grandfather's house. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just left. What I didn't know then was that me walking out wasn't the end of the story. It was the fuse being lit. Before I tell you what they did after I walked out, and how exposing the truth about my family blew up their perfect image, tell me in the comments, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? And one more thing. Have you ever had your happiness canceled because someone louder demanded the spotlight? The bus ride to my grandfather's place took 42 minutes. I counted every streetlight, every billboard, anything to keep from replaying my mom's face when she chose my sister's meltdown over my milestone. Port Lawrence, my coastal hometown, faded into a blur of gray buildings and damp sidewalks behind the fogged-up glass. By the time the bus pulled into the quiet neighborhood where my grandfather lived, my chest felt hollow, like I'd left my heart on that coffee shop floor with the ashes of my invitations. My grandfather, Robert Hayes, opened the door before I could knock. "Well, that's not a birthday smile," he said, brows knitting as he looked at my backpack. "What happened, kiddo?" I wasn't ready to talk yet, so he didn't push. That's the thing about him. He's the only adult in my life who doesn't treat my silence like an inconvenience. "Come in, I made too much chili," he said. "It'll taste better if you pretend you're not heartbroken." I gave him a look. He grinned. It worked. I snorted once, and the tightness in my throat loosened just enough for me to walk in without falling apart. After dinner, he led me to the small spare room upstairs, the one that always smelled faintly like old paper and lemon cleaner. "You can stay as long as you need," he said, setting my backpack on the bed. "No questions until you're ready to give answers." When he left, I finally let myself exhale. The room was cluttered with boxes from when my mom left for college. Curiosity is dangerous when you're hurting, but I couldn't help it. I started opening boxes. Old yearbooks, a faded varsity jacket, a shoebox full of Polaroids. At the bottom of one box, wrapped in a t-shirt, was a worn blue journal with my mom's maiden name scribbled on the front. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. But the girl inside me who had just had her 18th birthday erased needed to understand the woman who did it. The entries started when my mom was 16. By page 3, I felt like I was reading my own life with different names. Mom only cares about my sister's competitions. I got honor roll and she barely looked up from the program schedule. I feel like furniture in my own house. There it was, my own feelings written in someone else's handwriting. She had been the forgotten daughter once. And then, in a later entry, if I ever have daughters, I swear I'll never make one of them feel like the extra. I stared at that sentence until my eyes blurred. I thought about being 11 and watching my sister get a used car for her 16th, while I got a bicycle, to build character. I thought about my 13th birthday, where my mom left halfway through my cake to drive my sister to a last-minute rehearsal, promising she'd make it up to me, and never really did. I thought about the college savings account that used to have my name on it, until one day it didn't. My grandfather knocked gently. "You okay in there?" he asked. I wiped my eyes, dropped the journal back in the box, and opened the door. "Did Mom ever talk to you about how she grew up?" I asked. His face softened in a way I hadn't seen before. He motioned for me to sit on the edge of the bed. "Your mother was the less shiny kid," he said quietly. "Your grandparents favored your aunt. Sports trophies, pageants, you name it. Your mom swore she'd be different as a parent. But some people confuse different with repeating the same thing in a new outfit." Something clicked in my chest, like a lock turning in its rusted place. This wasn't random. It was a pattern stretching back generations. My mom hadn't just accidentally canceled my birthday. She'd been trained by her own childhood to believe that one daughter had to be the star and the other had to be the supporting act. That night, I lay on the unfamiliar bed, clutching my little audio recorder like a lifeline. Instead of crying myself to sleep, I pressed record. "Entry 1, I whispered. "This is Sarah Bennett, 18 years old. Current status: birthday canceled, family patterns exposed, and I just found out my mom once promised not to become exactly who she is now." The red light blinked back at me, silently capturing the beginning of a story I hadn't realized I was ready to tell. Living with my grandfather was like stepping into a different version of reality, one where my needs weren't an inconvenience, and my voice didn't bounce off walls and disappear. He was a retired local radio host, which meant his small house was full of relics from another era of storytelling. Old microphones, cables, a dusty mixing board in the attic he jokingly called the spaceship. On my second morning there, he found me at the kitchen table scrolling through my phone, rereading my mom's cancellation text to my friends until the words lost meaning. "Want to see something cooler than doom scrolling?" he asked. He took me up to the attic, flipped on a flickering lamp, and revealed the setup. "Back in the day, I used to host a late-night call-in show," he said, running his fingers along the boards. "People would tell me their problems, and I'd just listen. Sometimes that's all people really need." I stared at the mic, then at my little recorder in my hand. "Can I use this?" I asked. He shrugged. "It'll make a better paperweight if you don't." That night, I sat alone in the attic, put on the old headphones, and hit record. "Entry 2, I whispered. "This is Sarah, the girl whose mom canceled her 18th birthday to manage her sister's tantrum. I guess this is what it's like to be the background character in your own family movie." I talked for 20 minutes straight about the coffee shop, the burned invitations, the blue journal, and the realization that my mom's favoritism wasn't a glitch. It was a system. When I finished, I played it back. For the first time, I didn't sound dramatic or childish. I sounded real, wounded, yes, but clear. My grandfather listened to a snippet the next day while we washed dishes. "You know," he said, "people would listen to this." I laughed. "Yeah, sure. Welcome to the Sad and Forgotten show." Very upbeat branding. He shook his head. "You're not forgotten. You're unheard. Big difference. And the internet is full of people who wish someone would say out loud what they're afraid to even think." That's how the anonymous podcast started, We called it the second chair, a nod to the musician in the orchestra who plays just as hard as first chair but doesn't get the spotlight. I posted the first episode using a voice filter and a generic cover art photo of an empty chair, never expecting more than a handful of random listens. By week 2, the stats showed thousands. Messages started trickling in. I'm the other daughter, too. My mom always picked my brother. I thought it was just me. Please keep talking. I feel less crazy hearing this. Their stories piled up in my inbox, filling the space where my mom's texts should have been. At the same time, my old life refused to stay quiet. One afternoon at the coffee shop in my grandfather's town, I was wiping tables between shifts when my phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of my sister's Instagram story, a photo of my empty bedroom with the caption, "Some people can't handle real pressure, so they run away and play victim. I guess not everyone is built to succeed." My jaw clenched. A second image followed, the group chat with some of our shared friends. My sister had written, "Don't reach out to her. She loves the drama. She left on her own. She'll come back when she wants attention." One of my friends had silently forwarded it to me with a single message, "You need to see this." The next ping was a text from my mom. "Please stop making things harder for your sister. She's devastated about her LA program being postponed. You know how important her dancing is. You walking out right now is selfish. We can talk about your birthday later." There it was again. My life filed under later. My sister's crisis stamped urgent. I took my phone up to the attic and slammed the door a little harder than necessary. When I hit record on the microphone, the words came out sharper, cleaner, less shaky. "Entry 6, I said, skipping numbers because the days blurred. "Today my mom called me selfish for not being her emotional janitor. My sister is posting about me like I'm a villain in her origin story. So, I'm going to do something they've never seen me do. I'm going to stop being quiet." I didn't name them. I didn't show their faces. I told the story in themes, not names. Golden sister, emergency mom, invisible girl. That episode exploded. People stitched it, clipped it, spread it. One comment stood out. "If you ever confront them, you should record it." People like that gaslight so hard, the truth needs witnesses. I scrolled that comment over and over. Witnesses, proof. For the first time, the idea of going back home didn't just feel like walking into a trap. It felt like walking into a courtroom where the jury was finally on my side. A week later, my sister called. "No, hi, no, how are you?" "Just, Grandpa's stealing you so you can talk trash about us online now?" I put her on speaker so my grandfather could hear. "I'm telling the truth," I said. "If it sounds like trash, maybe that's not on me." She laughed coldly. "You think anyone cares? You'll come crawling back when you realize Grandpa can't protect you forever, or when Mom cuts you off." That night, I laid everything out on the attic floor. Screenshots of texts, the photo of my burned invitations, bank app screenshots I'd secretly taken months ago when I realized my college fund had been drained for a family necessity, and the pages I'd copied from my mom's old journal. I wasn't just the second chair anymore. I was building a case. The next move would change everything. I wasn't going back home to beg. I was going back to tell the truth, with the mic on and the world listening. The day I went back home, Port Lawrence looked exactly the same. Gulls screaming over the harbor, the same cracked sidewalk leading up to our little blue house, the same potted plant my mom never remembered to water. It was almost insulting how normal everything looked, considering how much had shifted inside me. I tucked my phone, fully charged, into my back pocket and slipped my small recorder into the front pouch of my hoodie. My grandfather dropped me off at the corner and stayed in the car. "You sure about this?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm not here to start a fight," I said. "I'm here to stop pretending one doesn't exist." I walked up the driveway, heart pounding in my ears. My sister's car was parked crooked, like she'd stormed in and slammed the door, which felt on brand. I took one last breath, opened the front door, and stepped inside. My mom was at the kitchen island with her laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. My sister was at the table, scrolling on her phone, earbuds in. Neither of them looked up right away. Typical. "We need to talk," I said, louder than I felt. My sister pulled out one earbud and rolled her eyes. "Wow, look who decided to visit," she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. My mom rubbed her temples. "Sarah, can we not do this right now? Your sister is under a lot of stress with everything that's happened." I pulled out my phone, typed 3 words into my podcast app, "Go live now," and tapped the screen. My audience counter started at a few hundred, then climbed. I set the phone on the counter, camera angled at me. Not them. "No," I replied, my voice steadier than my shaking hands. "This is exactly the time." My mom frowned at the phone. "Are you recording this?" "Yes," I said, "because every time I've tried to talk before, you've told me I'm remembering wrong or being dramatic. I'm done letting our conversations exist only in your version of reality." Comments started popping up on the screen. "She did it. She actually went back." "We're here with you, second chair?" My sister snorted. "You're really turning this into content? God, you're desperate." I swallowed. "You canceled my 18th birthday because her trip to LA fell through," I said, looking straight at my mom. "You texted all my friends before you even told me. You called it a family emergency when the only emergency was that she didn't get what she wanted." My mom's face flushed. "Sarah, you're oversimplifying." "I'm not finished," I cut in. "You didn't just cancel a party. You've been canceling me for years. Every time I had something important, if it clashed with her schedule, mine lost. Every time I needed you, her crisis was louder. You drained my college savings to pay for her summer program in LA and told me we'd figure it out later." Gasps flooded the chat. My sister's head snapped up. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped. "That was a family decision." I pulled a folded bank printout from my pocket and set it on the island. "I took screenshots months ago," I said. $16,000 transferred from the account that had my name on it to a card you used for her housing and flights. Nobody asked me. You just decided my future was less urgent." My mom's hand shook. "I was going to pay it back," she insisted. "Don't be so dramatic. Your sister had an opportunity." "And I didn't?" I shot back. "You couldn't imagine me having one because I'm not your star project." My sister stood up so fast her chair screeched against the tile. She lunged for my phone. "Turn it off," she hissed. "You're not going to make me look like some kind of villain." I grabbed the phone before she could reach it, holding it tight to my chest. The live chat was exploding. "Don't let her take it. We're witnessing years of quiet pain right now. Stay strong, Sarah." "If you're not a villain," I said, "then why are you so scared of people hearing what's actually happening?" My sister's face twisted. "Because you're twisting it," she shouted. "You ran away. You abandoned us. Mom was worried sick. And now you're online telling strangers half-truths for sympathy because you've always been jealous." The word hit me like an old bruise. Jealous. I thought about my mom's journal, about 16-year-old her promising not to make one daughter the less shiny one. "I didn't run because I was jealous," I said quietly, but the mic picked it up. "I left because my boundary ran out. There's a difference." I reached into my bag and pulled out a photocopy of that journal entry. My mom's eyes widened as soon as she recognized her handwriting. "Don't," she whispered. "Not that." I held it up to the camera for maybe 2 seconds, long enough for the words to be captured, not long enough to fully expose every detail of her past. "If I ever have daughters, I swear, I'll never make one of them feel like the extra." "This is you," I said to my mom. "You knew what this felt like. You promised yourself you'd never do this, and somehow, you still did. To me. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't stop. You can't call this a misunderstanding anymore. This is a pattern, a choice, over and over. My phone buzzed in my hand with an incoming call. Dad. He almost never called me directly. Always group calls, casual check-ins from the road. I declined and texted, "Can't talk. Live right now. Watch if you want to know what's going on." My sister's phone lit up too. Her notifications started flooding. DMs, tag alerts, and then, the one that made her go pale. An email preview from the subject line stamped in bold. Regarding your LA summer intensive placement. She opened it right there, breath coming fast. Due to recent social media attention and concerns about potential reputational risk, she read under her breath, then louder as shock took over. We are rescinding your placement for this year's program. She looked up at me like I'd physically hit her. You ruined everything, she whispered. You did that the moment you decided my life was collateral damage, I replied, voice shaking but clear. I ended the live stream, not because I was scared, but because the point had been made. The truth was out. Screenshots and clips would spread on their own. My heart hammered as silence fell over the kitchen, thick and suffocating. My mom sank onto a stool, face buried in her hands. My sister stared at the email like if she blinked, it would disappear. I didn't do this to destroy you, I said, feeling my throat tighten. I did it because if I kept pretending everything was fine, I was going to disappear. And I'm done disappearing. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. My mom called after me, voice raw. Where are you going? I paused just long enough to answer. Back to the only place where someone treats me like I'm not optional. Then I stepped outside, the echo of my own words following me down the driveway as my phone buzzed again and again with notifications from the live that would change all of our lives. By the time my grandfather's car pulled back into his driveway, my phone was a storm. Missed calls from my mom and my sister, texts from friends, and a notification from the podcast platform. Your live session, the day I stopped being quiet, has reached 1.2 million plays. I stared at the number until it stopped looking real. You look like you just watched a train crash in slow motion, my grandfather said as we walked into the house. I kind of did, I replied. I filled him in at the kitchen table, every word, every accusation, every revelation. He listened the way a good host listens to a caller, not to respond, but to understand. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled. Well, he said, you didn't say anything that wasn't true. But it still blew up their lives, I whispered. Jessica lost her spot in that LA program on the spot. Mom looked destroyed. I did that. No, he corrected gently. Their choices did that. You just turned the lights on in a room they've been trashing in the dark for years. The internet, unsurprisingly, had its own opinions. Some people called me brave. Some called me cruel. Others argued in the comments for hours about favoritism, siblings, and whether exposing family online is ever justified. My follower count tripled overnight. Offers came in, small podcast networks asking if I wanted to partner, sponsors wanting to put ads on my episodes about mental health and family dynamics. It felt surreal that the same voice that used to be drowned out at my own dinner table was suddenly valuable to strangers. A few days after the live, my dad called again. This time, I answered. Hey, I said cautiously. Hey, kiddo, he replied, sounding older than I remembered. I watched the live. My stomach flipped. Okay. There was a pause on the line, then, first of all, I'm sorry. For not seeing it. For not wanting to see it. I told myself your mom just knew what she was doing, that she understood you girls better because she was there more. It was easier to believe that than to admit one of my kids was getting hurt while I was on the road. I stared out the window at my grandfather's neatly trimmed lawn. "You did notice," I said quietly. "You joked about me being low maintenance. That's just a nice way of saying, the one we don't worry about." He sighed. "You're right. I used that as an excuse to not pay attention. That's on me." He hesitated. "Things at home are tense." "Because of the live?" I asked. "Because of the truth," he answered. "Your mom and I had the worst fight we've ever had. I asked her why she thought it was okay to drain your college account without telling you. She said she planned to fix it, that you would understand someday. I told her that wasn't her decision to make. I'm staying with a buddy for a bit while we figure things out." Guilt and relief tangled in my chest. "I didn't want to break you guys up," I said. "You didn't," he replied. "But sometimes things have to crack before they can be rebuilt right." After we hung up, I lay on the couch, scrolling through DMs from people who felt like they were watching their own stories unfold on my screen. A girl wrote, "Because of you, I finally told my dad how my mom always puts my brother first." Another message said, "I'm the golden sister, and I never realized how much it cost my sibling. I'm going to talk to her." It hit me then that this wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about all the families like ours, stuck in the same script. Meanwhile, my own family was unraveling. A mutual friend sent me a photo from the local grocery store, my sister in a red vest, scanning items with dead eyes. The caption read, "From future LA star to hometown cashier. Damn." The comments were brutal. Some people recognized her from my live and were openly cruel. That part made my stomach turn. I hadn't wanted that for her, no matter how much she'd hurt me. Another screenshot came from a dance teammate. The studio had quietly taken my sister's photo off their website's Success Stories page. Sponsors she'd hoped to get attention from were suddenly ghosting. She was living a humiliation she never saw coming, not because she failed, but because the image she'd built on being the adored, deserving one had shattered in public view. My mom, according to my dad, barely left the house. When she did, people looked at her differently. Some sympathetic, some judgmental. The woman who had built a career in marketing and brand management had mismanaged the brand that mattered most, her family, and the whole town had seen the receipts. It would have been easy to gloat, to sip karma like a hot drink and call it justice. But every time I imagined my sister crying alone in her room, every time I pictured my mom staring at that old journal entry, I felt something more complicated than satisfaction. I felt grief. One evening, my grandfather and I sat on the porch, swinging our bare feet as the sky turned pink over the street. "If you could go back," he asked, "would you still go live?" I thought about the burning invitations, the group text, the journal, the drained account, the years of being sidelined. "Yes," I said, "but maybe I'd remind people not to attack them personally, just to listen." He nodded slowly. "The thing about truth is, once it's out, you can't control how people respond to it. That's not your job." My job, I realized, was to decide what happened next. For me, not for them. I started planning my future without assuming my family would bankroll it. With the sponsorship offers and my coffee shop wages, plus my grandfather's insistence on helping a little, I realized I might still make it to a community college media program, then transfer later. "You'll be the first in this branch of the family to turn pain into a career on purpose," my grandfather joked. For a week, I didn't hear from my mom or my sister directly. Just whispers through others and the occasional vague post from my sister about fake people and loyalty. Then, one night, as I was editing a new episode about boundaries, my phone lit up with my mom's name. My finger hovered over the decline button, then moved to accept. It was time to face the part that frightened me more than the confrontation ever did. What came after the blow-up? Sarah? My mom's voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard it. Not weak, just stripped. No performance, no forced cheer. Just raw. I swallowed. Yeah, I'm here. There was a pause long enough for me to hear her breathing. I don't know how to start this, she admitted. Maybe with "I'm sorry," I said. Not to be cruel, but because it was the only honest place to begin. She exhaled shakily. I am sorry, she said. I'm sorry I canceled your birthday for your sister's meltdown. I'm sorry I took your college savings without telling you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you were always the one who had to adjust. The words hung between us like an unfamiliar language. I'd wanted to hear them for years, but now that they were here, they felt too light compared to the weight of everything that had happened. Why? I asked quietly. Why did you do it? You knew what it felt like. I read your journal, Mom. You were me once. She didn't even argue. I know, she said, voice breaking. And that might be the worst part. I thought if I poured everything into one child, the one who seemed most likely to make it would redeem the years I spent feeling like the afterthought. I told myself I was sacrificing for the family, that you were stronger and didn't need as much. It was easier than admitting I was repeating the same cruelty I swore I'd never inflict. My throat tightened. Calling it sacrifice doesn't make it less selfish, I said. You gambled with my future. You bet on her and treated me like a safety net. On the other end of the line, I heard a muffled sob. You're right, she whispered. And now everything's falling apart. She hesitated, then added, Your sister isn't okay, Sarah. I closed my eyes. I'd been bracing for this. What do you mean? She barely gets out of bed, my mom said. She drags herself to that job at the grocery store, comes home, and just shuts down. She doesn't talk to me. She doesn't dance. She scrolls through hateful comments until she can't breathe. Her whole identity was being the talented one, the chosen one. When that shattered, there was nothing underneath it, and that's my fault too. I pictured my sister, eyes puffy, shoulders slumped, the absence of that smug, invincible energy that used to fill every room. My heart twisted. I don't want her destroyed, I said. I just wanted a life that didn't require me to be small, so she could be big. I know, Mom said. And I'm not asking you to fix her. I'm scared. Your dad's furious with me. He's talking about separation if I can't really change. The house feels haunted by all the things we never said. And you're out there building a life without us. You have every right to. But I'm still your mother. And I don't know how to live with knowing I did this to you. I looked around my grandfather's attic studio. At the mic, the soundboard, the notes I'd scribbled about boundaries and generational trauma. You start by telling the truth, I said. To yourself. To her. Not the story about me being too sensitive or jealous. The real one. I'm trying, she said, but I don't know if it's enough. Her voice wavered. Would you come to dinner? Just once. All four of us. Your dad will be there. Not to pretend nothing happened. To talk. To let us say what we should have said years ago. I won't ask you to move back. I just need you to see that I'm trying. My first instinct was to say no, to protect the hard-won peace I'd found, to keep my distance from the gravitational pull of a house that had chewed me up and called it love. I don't owe you my presence as proof you've changed, I said slowly. And I'm not coming to be the emotional glue again. I wouldn't ask you to, she replied quickly. Come for you then. Come to say what you need to say, with us actually listening this time. Or come so you can walk away knowing you didn't leave any words trapped inside. I sat with that. My counselor, yes, I'd started seeing one online with the sponsorship money, had said something similar. Closure isn't always about reconciling. Sometimes it's about saying what you needed to say in a room that can't control you anymore. One dinner, I said finally. No pretending it's a reset button. No fake smiles for the neighbors. And if it starts feeling like the old days, I leave. Of course, my mom agreed quickly. Thank you, Sarah, really. Thank you. Before we hung up, she added, I love you. I know I haven't shown it well, but I do. I didn't say it back, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I wasn't going to throw those words like a bandage over an open wound. We'll see, I said instead. After the call, I sat down in front of the mic. I didn't go live this time. I recorded a private entry. People think the hardest part of setting boundaries is the explosion, I said. But honestly, the hardest part is what comes after, when the people who hurt you finally say sorry, and you have to decide what that word is worth. Then I turned to you, the invisible listener on the other side of the story. If you were me, if someone spent years making you feel like the background character and then suddenly begged for another chance, would you go to that dinner? Would you forgive them because they're family? Or would you stay gone to protect the version of you that finally learned to stand alone? Tell me in the comments who you are in your own story right now. The kid who left, the one who was favored, or the parent trying to break a pattern. The night of the dinner, I stood on the sidewalk outside my old house longer than I probably needed to. The porch light was on, casting a yellow circle onto the familiar cracked steps. Through the window, I could see the edge of our dining table, set with plates and glasses like any normal family meal. It almost looked like a staged photo for a brochure called We're Fine, See? But the tension in my chest told a very different story. I knocked instead of using my key. Little detail, big line in the sand. My dad opened the door. His eyes were tired, but when he saw me, something like relief washed over his face. Hey, kiddo, he said, voice soft. He pulled me into a brief, awkward hug, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. I hugged him back, then stepped inside. The house smelled like roasted chicken and garlic, the kind of meal my mom only made on holidays. She stood near the stove, hands twisting the dish towel. When she saw me, her eyes filled instantly. Sarah, she said. No pet names, no sweetie. Just my name. That felt new. My sister was already at the table. If you didn't know her, you might not have noticed the difference. But I did. The perfectly styled hair was now pulled into a messy bun. The designer hoodie had been swapped for a generic grocery store sweatshirt. Her posture, once all sharpness and swagger, had deflated. She didn't look like the golden girl. She looked like someone whose identity had been built on a pedestal that just crumbled. Hey, I said. We stared at each other for a beat too long. Dad gestured toward the table. Let's sit, he suggested. I pulled out a chair but didn't sit right away. Instead, I rested my hands on the back of it, grounding myself. My mom cleared her throat. Before we eat, I want to say something, she began. No, Mom, I said. I'm going first. She blinked, then nodded slowly and sat down. I stayed standing. I'm here tonight for me, I said, voice trembling just enough to betray my nerves. Not because I trust you again. Not because we're okay. I'm here because I need to hear myself say this while you actually listen and don't talk over me. My dad nodded. My sister stared at the table. My mom's hands gripped her napkin. For 18 years, I learned to read a room so I could disappear from it, I continued. If she was upset, if you were stressed, if anything rocked this house, I made myself smaller so you didn't have to deal with me. You called it being easy, strong, independent. But really, it was me surviving. I didn't ask you to cancel my birthday. I didn't ask you to drain my college savings. I didn't ask to be the backup plan in my own life. You chose that. And I paid the price for a game I didn't agree to play. My mom's shoulders shook as tears spilled down her cheeks. My sister looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't realize," my sister whispered. "I thought you were fine. You always seemed fine." "Because there wasn't room for me not to be," I replied. "You were allowed to fall apart. I was expected to hold the broom." My dad spoke up then, his voice firm in a way I hadn't heard often enough. "I should have seen it," he said. "I'm not going to pretend I didn't notice some of it. I did. I just told myself it wasn't that bad. That kids grow out of this kind of thing." I was wrong. Your mom and I both were. Mom wiped her face, mascara smudged. "I have no excuse," she said, looking at me. "I prioritized drama over quiet strength. I prioritized talent I could show off over the kid who didn't cause me trouble. I'm so sorry." She glanced at my sister. "I didn't just hurt you, Sarah. I hurt her too. I built her whole identity on being the favored one. And now that it's gone, she doesn't know who she is without it." My sister flinched, like the words physically stung. "I don't want to be pitied," she muttered. I didn't know another way to be." For the first time, I saw her not as the villain, but as another casualty of my mom's fear and my dad's silence. She had been handed a crown made of glass and told her worth depended on keeping it shiny. Any threat to that, like my happiness, had felt like an attack. "I'm angry," I told her. "But I don't want your life ruined. I just want my own life to exist next to yours without being crushed." She nodded slowly, tears gathering in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for the posts, the way I talked about you, the way I treated you like you were just there to support me. I'm paying for it now. Everyone saw who I was when I didn't get what I wanted." Silence settled over the table, heavy but honest. My dad turned to my mom. "Linda," he said quietly, "favoring one child didn't protect this family, it fractured it. You didn't save anyone. You just split the damage unevenly." She nodded, voice hoarse. "I know." I took a breath. "I forgive you," I said, slowly, tasting every word before I let it out. Their heads snapped up. "But forgiveness doesn't mean I'm coming back," I added. "I won't live here again. I won't go back to being the girl who swallows everything so the house stays peaceful. I'm building my own life, with Grandpa, with my work, with people who see me without requiring me to prove I exist." Mom nodded, tears spilling again. "You deserve that," she said. "And if that means we only get to see you sometimes, then that's our consequence to live with." I finally sat down, just for a moment. I took a bite of chicken I could barely taste, listening to the quiet clink of silverware. It wasn't warm, exactly, but it wasn't the old suffocating silence either. It felt like standing in the smoking ruins after a fire, everything charred, but the air finally clear. When dinner ended, I stood up and grabbed my jacket. My sister followed me to the porch. "Do you think we'll ever be close?" she asked, hugging herself. I thought about it. "Maybe," I said honestly. "If you ever want to know me as a person and not just as the shadow in your highlight reel, I'm open to trying. But I'm not going to fight for space in your life anymore. That part's on you." She nodded. "Fair." We stood there for a second, two sisters who had been cast in roles neither of us auditioned for. Then I walked down the steps and toward my grandfather's car, parked under the streetlight like a promise. On the drive home, I opened my recorder one last time for this chapter. "Favoritism doesn't just break the kid who gets less," I said softly. "It breaks the one who gets more too. One grows up believing they're never enough. The other grows up afraid that without the pedestal, they're nothing." I thought about my mom's journal, my sister's ruined program, my dad's guilt, and my own scarred but standing heart. "Here's what I've learned," I continued. Self-respect is not rebellion, even if your family treats it that way. You are not obligated to shrink so someone else can shine. You are allowed to walk away from a table that only serves you crumbs and build a new table elsewhere, even if that means the people at the old one feel the emptiness when you're gone. And then I spoke directly to you, the one listening, maybe with your own secret hierarchy at home. If you're the Sarah in your family, the one who's always expected to understand, to adjust, to accept less, this is your sign that you're allowed to stand up, to say no more without apologizing for the echo it sends through your house. If you're the Jessica, the favored one, this is your chance to ask who you'd be if nobody clapped for you, to see the sibling in the shadow and choose to stand next to them instead of on top of them. And if you're the parent, or the future parent, listening to this, remember that love is not a spotlight you point at one child. It's a table big enough for all of them to sit at without fighting for the only chair. I ended the recording and looked out the car window at the passing lights, feeling something settle inside me. Not neat, not finished, but real. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was a boundary drawn in permanent ink. Now I want to know, in your own story, who are you most like? Me, my sister, or my parents? And what's one small thing you can do this week to change the script, even just a little? From my point of view, the main character isn't dramatic at all. She's a girl who finally realized her pain was real and decided to stop accepting the bare minimum. I respect how she didn't choose violent revenge, but used her voice, education, and evidence to expose the truth and rebuild her own life. She turned years of being ignored into something powerful and useful for others going through the same thing. That takes courage, not cruelty. Now I want to ask you, if you were in her place, would you have gone public with your story? Or would you have stayed silent to protect the family image? And why? I'm 32 years old, and until last month, I honestly believed I was the responsible one holding my family together. I'm the oldest child, the one who left our small Texas town, built a career, and wrote checks whenever someone needed just a little help. When my younger brother got engaged, I wired $78,000 without blinking. Whatever you two want, I told my parents. Book the venue, the planner, the band, make it beautiful. I thought I was buying joy for my family. I didn't realize I was paying for my own disappearance. The day everything snapped, I was in my office in downtown Austin, halfway through a budget review, when my phone lit up with a number I knew. Jenna, the wedding planner. I put her on speaker, still typing. Hey Jenna, what's up? Final headcount already? There was a pause on the line that made my fingers freeze over the keyboard. Lauren, she said quietly. I'm so sorry. Your parents called this morning. They asked me to remove you from the guest list. I actually laughed at first. Remove me? I paid for the wedding. Another pause. Papers shuffled on her side. They said the $78,000 was a gift, and they told me you're too busy to come with your schedule. They insisted it would be less stressful for everyone if you weren't involved. My chest went cold. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. They kept the money. They cut me out. And you just said okay? Lauren, what was I supposed to do? They're the ones signing the contracts. At least, that's what they think. I swiveled my chair toward the window, staring at the skyline I'd helped build my life in. These people were my family, my parents, and they had calmly erased me from my own brother's wedding while cashing my transfer like it was nothing. Jenna, I said, my voice suddenly very clear. You and I both know that every major vendor on that wedding is under my company's umbrella. A nervous little laugh escaped her. Technically, yes, But your mom said you told them not to worry about the money anymore. She keeps repeating that. I felt something inside me lock into place. Okay, I said. Then here's what I'm saying. I leaned forward, elbows on the desk. Pull. Every. Single. Vendor. Silence. Then a whisper. Lauren, if I do that, your brother's wedding collapses. And you realize you own all of them. Exactly, I replied. Now you understand what they just threw away. Before I tell you what happened after I gave that order, and how my parents reacted when the wedding they'd built on my money started to crumble, tell me this in the comments. What time is it where you are? And what country or city are you watching from? I want to see just how far this one family's little secret is about to travel. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing Jenna's voice in my head, replaying the words, "removed you from the guest list" like a glitching recording. At 3 in the morning, I finally gave up on pretending I'd get any rest and opened my laptop at the kitchen counter. Numbers, I can handle. Feelings? Not so much. I'm a forensic accountant and CFO for a regional hospitality group. We own venues, catering companies, a luxury decor firm, even a boutique floral studio that services half of Central Texas. I spend my days tracking money down to the penny. People don't usually get away with lying to me. That night, I decided my parents weren't going to be the exception. I pulled up the wedding folder on my work drive, the one I'd set up months earlier when I first wired the $78,000. Back then, I thought it was overkill to treat my brother's wedding like a mini acquisition. Now, I was grateful I had. I started with the contracts: venue, catering, floral, design, band, photographer, transportation. Every one of them had a note at the top. Internal discount approved. Hayes family. Some even had a second note. Lauren to cover overages personally. My own handwriting from late-night calls with Jenna when she'd asked if she could stretch the budget just a little. I scrolled further and saw something that made my stomach twist. An email thread I wasn't supposed to be CC'd on had been automatically routed to my folder because of our system rules. It was from 3 weeks ago. Subject line, Ari. About Lauren's involvement. Jenna. Just confirming final approvals. Will Lauren be part of the ceremony or just attending? My mom replied from her personal account. Please keep Lauren off any special lists. She insisted on paying, but she has a tendency to take over. This day is about Ethan, not her. As for the money, she knows it's a gift. She doesn't need credit. Then a second email from my dad minutes later. And please don't mention finances to Lauren again. She's busy. We don't want her stressed. Let's phrase everything as if we're covering it ourselves. I read that line 3 times. Busy, stressed, not wanting me involved. I clicked into another folder. Screenshots Jenna had saved from a family group chat. I hadn't been added to this one. The title at the top, Wedding Brainstorm, No Drama. My brother's fiancé had written, I love Lauren, but I don't want the vibe to feel like her event. She's so intense. If she's there, everyone will focus on her career, her success, her money. Ethan deserves a day that's about him. My mom. Exactly. She'll understand. She always understood. She's the strong one. A cousin chimed in. So, she pays. You two take the credit, and she doesn't come. That's efficient. Laughing emojis. I stared at the screen, palms sweaty, feeling that familiar old role wrap around me like chains. The strong one, the responsible one, the walking bank account who doesn't have feelings. Tell me honestly, if you saw a chat where your own family joked about taking your money and keeping you away for the vibe, what would you do? Keep quiet to protect the peace, or burn the peace to the ground? I thought about all the smaller moments that had led here. The times I'd covered my brother's rent behind my parents' backs, the loans that turned into gifts because Mom would remind me Ethan wasn't as lucky as I was. The day I closed on my first property, and my dad said, "Don't brag in front of your brother, sweetheart. He's already sensitive about not making as much." For years, I'd shrunk myself at home, worn cheaper clothes when I visited, avoided mentioning my promotions, let them call me bossy, when all I was doing was trying to help. Now I was seeing the end result of that pattern in black and white. I had trained them to think my feelings were optional. But here's the thing about accountants. Once we see the pattern, we can't unsee it. I scrolled back to Jenna's number on my phone. If my parents wanted to treat my money like a faceless gift, then I would show them what it looks like when that gift disappears. My thumb hovered over the call button. I knew that one decision would obliterate months of planning and plunge my brother's wedding into chaos. I also knew that if I did nothing, I would be teaching them, one more time, that they could erase me, and I would quietly accept it. I hit call. The next afternoon, I drove the 3 hours to my parents' house with the kind of focus I usually reserve for court testimonies. I'd already spoken to Jenna that morning. I'll tell you exactly what I told her in a second. But first, you need to understand the battlefield I was walking into. My parents live in a manicured suburb outside Dallas, the kind where everyone knows everyone's business and pretends they don't. As I pulled into their driveway, I could see extra cars lined up on the street. My uncle's truck, my aunt's SUV, my grandmother's ancient sedan. Of course, they were circling the wagons. I walked in without knocking. The living room was full. My parents on the couch, my brother in an armchair, his fiancée perched on the arm like it was her throne, two aunts at the dining table pretending not to listen. The TV was on mute, frozen on a local news segment about inflation. Ironic. "There she is," my dad said, standing up like he was about to conduct a board meeting. "Lauren, we were just talking about you." "I bet you were," I replied, closing the door behind me. "Before we start, I want this on the record. I know about the group chat. I know about the emails. And I know you called Jenna to take me off the guest list." My mom's face went pale. "Who showed you those?" "The cloud," I said. "You raised an accountant, remember? You taught me to keep receipts." My brother Ethan looked from me to our parents, confusion etched all over his face. "Wait, what group chat?" He hadn't seen it. That fact hit me like a small mercy I hadn't asked for. "We'll talk about that later," my mom snapped, shooting me a warning look. "Lauren, sweetheart, you're blowing this out of proportion. You're always so busy. We thought we were doing you a favor." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "A favor? By taking $78,000 from me, telling the planner I'm not invited, and then lying to everyone that I'm too busy to attend my own brother's wedding?" My dad folded his arms, trying to look calm. "You offered that money. You said, and I quote, 'Don't worry about paying me back. I just want you to enjoy the day.' We took you at your word. And you are busy. You're always in meetings, always on your phone. We didn't want to stress you out with details." "Details like whether I exist?" I shot back. "Details like whether I get to sit in a chair and watch my brother get married?" Ethan finally spoke, voice tight. Is this true? You told Jenna to take Lauren off the list?" My future sister-in-law shifted uncomfortably. "We just thought the focus should be on us. Your parents said Lauren didn't mind, that she prefers to keep work and family separate." "Work and family?" I repeated slowly. "You mean the work that built the company that owns your venue, your caterer, your florist, your designer?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. My dad stepped in quickly. "That's exactly the problem, Lauren. Everything always comes back to you and your career. We didn't want people whispering about how you paid for everything. We wanted Ethan to look like he had it together. You can't fault us for trying to give your brother some pride." "So you lied," I said flatly. "You used my money to play make-believe in front of the neighborhood. You made me the invisible investor in my own family. Here's where most people expect the big emotional speech where I cry and beg them to love me. Instead, I did what I do best. I went straight to the numbers. Dad, how much do you think this wedding costs without my internal discounts? He frowned. I don't know. More? Try 140,000, I said. You're getting everything at nearly half price because my company owns the vendors, and the contracts list me as the ultimate financial backer, not you. You think you're the clients, but on paper, you're not. My mom squeezed her hands together. What are you saying, Lauren? I looked at Ethan. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. I'm saying I called Jenna this morning, I said quietly. I told her to pull every single vendor under my umbrella. My mom gasped. You what? The venue, catering, flowers, design, band, photography, transport. I ticked them off on my fingers. All canceled. Their choice was simple. Either they stay loyal to me, the person who pays their salaries every month, or they risk a lawsuit for breach of internal agreements. Guess who they picked? The room erupted. My dad. You have lost your mind. Do you know how we look right now? My mom. How could you do this to your brother? My aunts whispered frantically in the background. Through it all, Ethan just stared, speechless. No, I said, my voice low. Do you know how you look? You erased your daughter for appearances. You treated $78,000 like a cover charge for pretending you're something you're not. I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourselves when you decided my presence was negotiable but my money wasn't. I turned to Ethan, softening just a little. I'm sorry this hits you too. You didn't know about the emails. You didn't write the words. She'll understand. She always understood. But you also didn't ask who was really paying. You let them shield you from the truth because it was easier. His jaw clenched. So what, Lauren? You want me to call off the wedding now? That's not my decision, I said. But you should know this. Without serious changes, there is no big wedding. No vineyard venue, no custom menu, no 12-piece band. Not on my dime. Not under my company's name. Oh, let me ask you. If you were standing there, would you have backed down when your whole family started shouting? Or would you have done what I did? Held your line and let the consequences fall where they belonged? Because I didn't flinch. Not this time. On the drive back to Austin, my phone became a war zone. Missed calls, voicemails, furious texts in the family group chat I was still in. Lauren, answer your father. This is childish. You're ruining your brother's life over hurt feelings. Hurt feelings. That phrase kept repeating until it almost became funny. They were right about one thing. I was hurt. But I wasn't acting out of a momentary sting. I was correcting years of imbalance in one brutal stroke. Back in my office, I closed the door, pulled up my contact list, and started working through it like a crisis drill. First, the venue, one of our flagship properties in the Hill Country, booked solid months in advance. I called the general manager. The Hayes wedding? I said. Cancel the date. He hesitated. That's your family's event, isn't it? Not anymore, I replied. Release the date. Put the deposit into our break glass fund for staff emergencies. If my parents want the space, they can apply like external clients and pay full price in advance, with no family discount. I sent the same message to our catering director. Pull the custom menu, stop the special orders, reassign the staff. If ingredients are already purchased, redirect them to our other events, and do not refund the family. Their gift to themselves just became an internal donation. Was that petty? Maybe. But here's the logic. My parents had told everyone my money was a gift. Fine. I decided to honor that, just not in the way they expected. The gift would go to my employees, to emergency bonuses, to vendor upgrades for clients who appreciated us, not to a performance of fake financial stability for my parents' social circle. Next, the florist. I'm invoking Clause 12, I told the owner, my partner in that business. The client has violated our goodwill agreement. Cancel the order. Keep non-refundable costs. He whistled softly. Family really messed up, huh? They removed me from the guest list and lied about it, I said. Consider this a teachable moment. The band was actually excited. They'd been juggling a higher-paying corporate gig for the same date. You're sure? The manager asked. If we walk away from your brother's wedding, we can't go back. I'm sure, I said. Take the corporate show. Send me the updated contract. With every cancellation that went through, my phone buzzed with a new kind of notification, forwarded emails from my parents, frantic and confused. There must be a misunderstanding. We're the clients. My daughter doesn't have the right to cancel this. We're the ones paying. One reply from the venue manager made me smile grimly. According to our records, Ms. Lauren Hayes is the financial sponsor and majority owner of this property. Her instructions take precedence. Within 3 hours, the wedding my parents had bragged about for months had gone from a full-scale production to an empty date on a calendar. Deposits were gone. The elaborate decor mood boards? Useless. The specialty linens my mom had obsessed over? No longer on order. Sometimes revenge in stories is dramatic and explosive. Mine was painfully administrative. Phone calls, contract clauses, financial reallocations. But make no mistake, the impact was nuclear. That evening, my best friend Maya called. Okay, tell me everything, she said. I filled her in, from the planner's call to the last vendor cancellation. She was quiet for a long time. I'm proud of you, she finally said. I know that sounds weird when you just detonated your brother's dream wedding, but you've let them walk all over you for years. At some point, the bill comes due. Do you think I went too far? I asked, surprising myself with the vulnerability in my voice. Real question? If they had simply forgotten to consult you, maybe, she said. But they took your money, erased you, and then lied to your face. There's a difference between making a mistake and building a whole scenario where you don't matter. And here's where it got worse for my parents. Vendors talk. Quietly, respectfully, but they talk. Within 48 hours, people in our network knew the basics. Owner's family tried to run a wedding without her, used her money, cut her out. She pulled the plug. We're not talking national headlines yet, but locally? People were choosing sides. If you're still watching, I want your honest take. Was I wrong to weaponize the power I had, or was it the only language people who treat money as more real than feelings were ever going to understand? By the second day after the cancellations, my family's calm suburban facade had cracked wide open. How do I know? Because for the first time in my life, Ethan added me to a private group chat without our parents in it. We need to talk, his first message said, without Mom and Dad. The group was just 3 people, me, Ethan, and his fiancée, Brooke. My stomach tightened when I saw her name, but I opened the thread. Ethan, is it true? Did you cancel everything? Me. I canceled every vendor that answered to me or my companies. Yes. Brooke, how could you do that to us? This is our wedding. Your issue is with your parents, not with me. I took a breath before replying. I knew whatever I wrote would likely be screenshot and circulated, but at this point, that didn't scare me. Me. You both benefited from my money and my business relationships. You both were in the chat where my parents decided to keep me off the guest list for the vibe. That makes you part of the choice. There was a long pause before Ethan responded. Ethan, I never wanted you off the guest list. I didn't even know they did that. Mom told me you were too busy to commit to the date. I believed her. That's on me. Then Brooke. We just wanted a day that didn't revolve around comparing us to you. You're intimidating, Lauren. Everyone talks about your career, your properties, your success. I didn't want to feel small at my own wedding. I stared at that message for a while, feeling something complicated flicker underneath my anger. You know what would have solved that? I typed. A conversation. You could have said, "Hey Lauren, we feel overshadowed sometimes. Can we find a way to include you that doesn't make everything about money?" Instead, you let my parents push me out like a problem to be quietly removed. I decided to send one more message that would force Ethan to confront the bigger issue. Me. Ethan, you know how many times I paid your rent in college? Ethan. A few. Me. Try 13? You know who covered the down payment on your truck when your credit was shot? Silence. Me again. I didn't throw it in your face back then because I wanted you to feel proud. But I'm realizing now that my silence just taught everyone my help was automatic, expected, invisible. He finally replied, "Ethan, I didn't know it was that many times. I just assumed Mom and Dad had it handled." Me. Exactly. Later that night, I got a different kind of notification. My cousin had tagged me in a Reddit thread. "Wait, is this you?" she wrote. The title of the post: "My parents removed me from my brother's wedding guest list, but kept the $78,000 I paid. So I pulled every vendor." Someone had posted a summarized version of my situation, obviously pieced together from bits of family gossip and vendor chatter. The comments were wild. "NTA, that's straight up theft. You can't treat someone like an ATM and then be shocked when the card stops working. Family or not, that's financial abuse." There were dissenting voices too. "You ruined your brother's wedding to prove a point. This is why you don't mix money and family." Over and over, I saw variations of one core question: is this justified revenge or going too far? I wish I could say I ignored it. I didn't. I read every comment, watching strangers dissect my life. Weirdly, it helped. Seeing people who'd never met me look at the facts without decades of emotional baggage made everything clearer. They could see what my own family couldn't, or wouldn't. My parents, of course, were horrified. My mom called me, voice shaking. "How could you let this go online?" she demanded. "Our friends read these things, Lauren, the neighbors, the pastor." "I didn't post it," I said. "But maybe you should ask yourself why so many people see the problem here. And it's not me canceling the vendors. It's you cutting me out and keeping the money." My dad jumped in on speaker. "You're making us out to be monsters," he said. "We raised you. We sacrificed for you. And this is how you repay us?" "You're not monsters," I said quietly. "You're people who made a selfish choice and got called on it. You can fix it. You can apologize. Refund what you can. Be honest. With me, with Ethan, with the community you care so much about impressing. Or you can keep pretending you're the victims here. That part is up to you." So I want to ask you, when family crosses a line this badly, do you think public accountability, like that Reddit post, is fair? Or should it have stayed behind closed doors, even if that meant nothing ever changed? The Reddit thread wouldn't leave my mind. Strangers, with no stake in my family drama, kept repeating the same idea. Tell your story in your own words before someone else defines it for you. That's how I ended up sitting at my kitchen table again, laptop open, cursor blinking over a blank social media post. I don't usually share much about my personal life online. My feeds are mostly spreadsheets, travel photos, and the occasional sarcastic meme about audits. But this felt different. For once, the numbers really were personal. I started typing. "Last year," I wrote, "I paid $78,000 toward a family wedding. I also used my position as CFO and co-owner of a hospitality group to secure massive discounts, essentially cutting the cost in half. Yesterday, I learned my parents and future in-laws removed me from the guest list while keeping my money and my business connections. They told the planner I was too busy and that my contribution was a gift they didn't need to acknowledge. I paused, then added, "So I did what any good accountant does when a budget is abused. I closed the account. I canceled every vendor under my umbrella and redirected the funds to people who actually respect me. I made sure not to name my brother, my parents, or our businesses explicitly. I blurred identifying details. This wasn't about starting a witch hunt. It was about finally refusing to let my story be twisted into, Lauren is just dramatic." I ended the post with this: family should be about support, not silent exploitation. If your love depends on someone never setting a boundary, it's not love, it's dependence. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is accept the fallout that comes with saying, "No more." Then I hit post. Within an hour, my inbox was full. Old college friends, former coworkers, even a professor from grad school. People shared their own stories of being used by relatives, of strong siblings who were expected to carry everyone until they broke. One message stuck with me: "I wish I'd done what you did 10 years ago. Maybe I wouldn't resent my family so much now." But of course, my parents saw it too. My mom texted a screenshot, followed by, "Take this down. Now." I replied, "I haven't used your names. I've told the truth. That's more than I can say about what you told Jenna." Then something happened I didn't expect. My grandmother, who lives on a fixed income and has never once commented on my career, called me. "I read your post thing," she said, stumbling over the word. "I had your aunt help me. Your parents are upset." I braced myself. "I know," I said. "I didn't mean to drag you into it, Grandma." She was quiet for a moment. "Lauren, when your dad was your brother's age, we didn't have anything. When you started making real money, I watched them lean on you. At first, I thought it was just normal family helping. But then I heard the way they talked about you when you weren't there. Like your success was both a tool and an embarrassment. Tears stung my eyes. Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have listened?" she asked gently. "You were so eager to be the good daughter, the helper. Sometimes love makes us deaf to warning bells." She took a breath. "I'm not saying I agree with how far you took this. A broken wedding is a big thing. But I am saying they needed a wake-up call. And you needed to stop letting them spend your life like it was their own." That blessing, tiny and fragile as it was, meant more than any online comment. It told me I wasn't crazy, that someone who'd known my parents before they were parents saw the pattern too. So I decided to go one step further, for myself, not for revenge. I scheduled a meeting with our company's legal team and HR. "From now on," I said, "any family member who books with our businesses will be treated as a standard external client. No silent sponsorships, no off-the-books arrangements. If I choose to contribute, it will be documented clearly as a separate gift, with terms." My lawyer nodded. "And boundaries for your personal accounts?" he asked. I smiled tightly. "Those get the same treatment. The Bank of Lauren is officially closed for unscheduled withdrawals. If you've ever been the responsible one in your family, I want you to really think about this. What would change in your life if you applied the same standards to your relatives that you apply to your job? Clear expectations, written agreements, and the right to say no?" A week after the cancellations, my parents called an emergency family meeting. This time, I made sure it wasn't on their turf. We met at a neutral, quiet conference room in one of my properties. Fitting, considering money had become the battlefield. When I walked in, they were already there. My mom and dad, looking more tired than I'd ever seen them. Ethan, with shadows under his eyes. Brooke, clutching a folder of what looked like backup wedding plans. No extended family. No audience. Just the four people most entangled in this mess. My dad spoke first. "We lost almost all the deposits," he said bluntly. "The vendors you don't own are wary of taking us on now because they think we'll have family drama at the event. We've had to call relatives and explain there may not be a big wedding anymore. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" "Humiliation isn't fatal," I said calmly. "Losing a daughter might be." My mom flinched. "Don't say that. You're our child. Or our. Nothing changes that." "You keep saying that," I replied, "but your actions don't match. You were willing to celebrate a version of our family that didn't include me. That does change something." Ethan leaned forward. "We postponed the wedding," he said quietly. "Indefinitely. Mom and Dad can't afford to recreate what we had without your discounts and your money. Even if they could, vendors don't want the headache. And honestly, neither do I. I don't want to start my marriage on a lie." Brooke shot him a look, but he continued. "I read all the emails," he said. "The group chat. Everything. Mom, Dad, the way you talk about Lauren when she's not there, it's messed up. Like she's some kind of machine we keep plugged in until we need something." My dad's jaw tightened. "You're exaggerating." "No," Ethan said, voice shaking. "I'm not. You call her intense and too much when she has boundaries. You brag about her money to your friends, then tell her not to show off around us. You let me lean on her financially and never once said, 'Maybe we're asking too much.' You put me on a pedestal I didn't earn and then treated her like the scaffolding no one is supposed to see. I watched my little brother, the one they'd always called sensitive, finally stand up, not for me at first, but for the truth. It hurt and healed at the same time. My mom started to cry. "We just wanted you both to feel loved," she said. "We wanted Ethan to feel like he could provide for his fiancée." "Then you should have helped him build that instead of pretending he already had it," I said gently. Taking my money and hiding my role didn't make him stronger. It made him dependent on a lie. Brooke finally spoke up. "So what now?" she asked. "No wedding? Just fallout?" I inhaled slowly. This was the part where, in so many stories, the main character either forgives everything or cuts everyone off forever. Real life is messier. "Here's what I'm willing to do," I said. "If you want to get married, you still can. But it will be small. Something you can actually afford without my help. Courthouse, backyard, simple restaurant, whatever that looks like. I won't sabotage anything you build honestly." I turned to my parents. "But I will not be financing any more illusions. No more secret sponsorships. No more. Lauren will understand. If I contribute to anything in this family, it will be with clear credit, clear terms, and my full consent. And if you ever again decide my presence is optional while my money is essential, that will be the last time we speak." My dad opened his mouth, then closed it again. My mom wiped her eyes. "We were wrong," she whispered. "We should have talked to you. We should have been grateful instead of entitled." She looked at Ethan. "We should have raised you better about money too." Saying, "we were wrong," doesn't magically rewind the damage. The big wedding was gone. Some relatives stopped speaking to me, convinced I'd gone Hollywood even though I live in Texas. Others quietly messaged to say they understood, that they'd felt the same pressure in their own families, but never had the nerve to push back. Ethan and Brooke eventually got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at a local park. I was there. I bought a nice gift. I did not pay for the event. There was no 12-piece band, no designer linens, no elaborate floral installation. But there also wasn't a lie at the center of it. My parents are learning. Sometimes my mom catches herself before saying, "You're so lucky," and instead says, "You worked really hard." My dad has stopped introducing me as the rich one and started saying, "She runs her own group of businesses. We're proud of her." It's not perfect, but it's honest, and I guard that honesty fiercely. Here's the lesson I wish someone had drilled into me 10 years ago. Love without boundaries turns into leverage. Money without boundaries turns into control. And family without boundaries turns into a place where the most responsible person quietly bleeds, while everyone else calls it support. If you're the strong one in your family, the fixer, the payer, the reliable backup, this is your sign to audit your relationships the way you'd audit a company. Where is the value flowing? Who is investing back in you? Who treats you like a person? And who treats you like infrastructure? Self-respect is not cruelty. Saying no is not revenge. In my case, yes, it looked like revenge. Pulling every vendor, letting my parents feel the real price of erasing me. But underneath that, it was something much simpler. I stopped agreeing to pay for versions of my life where I didn't exist. So I'll end with this. And I really want you to answer in the comments. If you were in my position, your parents kept your $78,000, cut you from the guest list, and lied about you being too busy, would you have canceled the wedding vendors or walked away and kept the peace? And more importantly, what boundaries are you going to set in your life after hearing this? From my point of view, this story isn't just about revenge. It's about the moment someone finally realizes they're not an endless ATM for their family. Lauren didn't destroy the wedding out of spite. She forced everyone to see the real cost of using her love and money while pretending she didn't matter. It's painful, but sometimes the only way to teach respect is to stop allowing disrespect. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were Lauren, would you have canceled the vendors or walked away and stayed silent? And have you ever felt used by your own family like this?